Hello friends, neighbors, and fellow VEDSies. It is day something of VEDS, and I am going to tell you a story. This is a story of a young boy named Harry. Now, Harry lived his entire childhood in an orphanage. He never knew his parents. He never even knew who they were or anything about them. Anytime he would ask the head of his orphanage, he would get kind of a cryptic response, something like, I'll tell you when you're older, you're not really old enough to know that yet. It would just keep kind of putting him off, and so he never actually knew who his parents were or really anything about himself or his background. Other than the fact that his name was Harry, he knew that. This went on through his entire childhood, and he never got adopted either. He went through his entire childhood, no one ever seemed to want to adopt him, and he never could figure out why. He tried to be a good, likable kid and as friendly as he could possibly be, but for whatever reason he just never got adopted, and he could never figure out why that was. And finally he got to the point when he was an adult. He became of legal age, and he had to leave the orphanage and kind of try to make it on his own. Before he left, the orphanage director called him into his office and basically said, "I know that you have been asking your entire life about who your parents were and where you came from, and I know the answer, but I'm really not the one to tell you. But I can at least give you a place to go, a direction to go to search for these answers." And he gave him an address. And he said, "Go to this address, you'll find the answers that you need." And the address happened to be a building not that far from there. So he went to this building, and it turned out to be this just really kind of weird, out-of-the-way building that you wouldn't even give a second glance to if you were driving or walking past. It was just kind of an ordinary building, but he went inside, and he immediately was asked to go to the office of the guy in charge. And the guy in charge told him, I understand that you've had a lot of questions about who your parents were, and what I can tell you is that your parents were a part of a secret organization. This secret organization, which deals in just the sorts of things that ordinary citizens don't see. Just trying to right the wrongs of the world that ordinary citizens don't see. They know things that other people don't know, and they're very involved in sort of the secret workings of everything. Your parents were part of that organization, but they were tragically killed shortly after you were born. We don't know what happened, we don't even know who killed them, and we've been trying to figure it out. And the reason why you haven't been adopted throughout your entire childhood is because when we placed you in the orphanage, it was with the understanding that when you became of age, we would get you into the organization. We would be able to take you, and you would be able to join the group that is trying to figure out this mystery of what happened to your parents. And it was very important that you stay in the orphanage and stay isolated from the rest of the world and any sort of familial connections, because this is kind of a dangerous gig. And so over the course of the next several years, Harry learned more and more about this organization. He learned about its secret workings, he learned a bunch of things that he didn't even know existed, and he made a couple of friends along the way. We'll call them Riley and Herman. But over the course of those years, in addition to his official schooling that he was learning about the organization through, he also learned about some other things that he probably wasn't supposed to know. He learned about some hidden corruption within the organization, some things that they were doing, some shady dealings that they were involved with that made the organization look more and more corrupt than it first appeared, and not quite the righteous group that it seemed to be. And eventually he and his two friends did finally discover who killed Harry's parents, and in a bizarre twist it ended up being the head of that very organization who had them killed because they were starting to ask a few too many questions about the workings of the organization. A mistake that now Harry, Riley, and Herman have also made, and so now their lives are in danger, but thankfully they were able to band with some other members of the organization, and they were able to fight back against this leader and eventually bring him to justice for the things that he had done. And so finally Harry had some peace of mind. He knew who he was, he knew who his parents were, he knew what happened to him, and he knew that justice had been served, and so he was able to go about the rest of his life. All was well. So that was the completion of Spartanite 67's challenge for me to take a story that I knew well and basically break it down to its most basic elements, condense it down to 2 or 3 sentences, and then using that basic premise tell a whole new story that's also based on that premise. If you couldn't figure it out, I chose Harry Potter simply because it's the first thing that I thought of, and I broke it down to basically Harry lived his entire childhood in misery until he discovered a secret world, the secret world of his parents, and he spent the next several years trying to figure out who he was, who his parents were, and track down and bring to justice the man who killed them, or something along those lines. So yeah, it's kind of Harry Potter meets Spy Kids meets Series of Unfortunate Events, but yeah. Anyway, I hope you found that at least a little bit entertaining for today's VEDS video, and until next time, friends and fellow VEDSies, I'll see you tomorrow.